Grand Rise, and how are you guys doing? I hope that you guys had a safe, restful night and enjoying your morning. Um, I want to talk very, very bluntly and frank about how to teach Black young people to survive in today's America. More particularly, I want to talk to the parents and to people who deal with Black young people across the nation. Some things that I believe will help a lot of Black kids survive. We live in a day and a time, we all know what the day and time that we're living in, where Black existence in this country is slowly but surely being targeted. We're being targeted. There's a plan and agenda to get rid of Black people in this country. I'm not going to call it population control. I'm just going by what we see almost every day, every week in the news. There's always a new story about somebody who is Black being murdered, whether it's by the police or whether it's by some vigilante person who feel like a Black person deserves to just be murdered for no reason, just because they're Black. And we're in 2021. So, here's the deal, y'all, okay? There is a system in place to get rid of Black people. We all know this. Some of us admit it, some of us won't admit it. But the bottom line is it's there. If you don't get rid of the Black person by murder, by lynching, or whatever, by Black on Black crime, by police shootings or whatever, then get rid of the Black person or by limiting opportunities to them, keeping them in poverty. The mechanism that's commonly known as systemic racism is the form of oppression. If you can't get rid of them, then oppress them so that they can't ever do anything and they can't even have an impact on the society that they live in or influence the people around them in a positive, to use the New Age word, way. Here's the deal. I want to talk to Black parents in particular because our caretakers of Black young people, it starts with the caretaking of the Black young people. Yes, the system is there, and it's looking for a reason to target every Black person in this country. It is. And it's real. And I'm not going to sit here and act like racism is not real. I'm not going to sit here and act like racial profiling doesn't exist. I am not going to sit here and lie to you because I'm not doing that. That's not why I'm here. But even though those systems are in place, even though the mechanisms and New World Order, foundations, if you will, are steadily being laid to eventually control all of us, not just Black people. And that's the thing now. A lot of other races in this country don't realize that pretty soon we all are going to be slaves. They don't realize it yet, though. Stay tuned. Just stay tuned. But anyway, Black people, if we make a choice to bring Black kids into this world, we have to prepare them for the reality of living as a Black person in America. Is it fair? No. Is it right? No. It's heartbreaking. The very first time you have to sit down your Black young boy and explain to them why they're a target. It's heartbreaking. I have 2 sons. I have 2 grandsons. When they're old enough, I'm going to have the conversation with them if their mamas and their daddies haven't. Okay? What to do when confronted by the police. Because You will be at some point. And you just got to be honest and frank with them. And you can't shelter this. There's no sheltering. You can't shelter them for this now. It's just happening all over. People are, I don't know, all restraints are being lifted. The number one thing that you can do as a black person, and you have black children that you're trying to raise, grandchildren, nieces, nephews, whatever, or if you are a youth leader of black young men and women, you need to drill this into them. They can't have a weapon on them. I don't care if they see everybody, mama, daddy, aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, packing a weapon. You're in an open carry state, such as Tennessee, where I am right now. I don't care. You got to drill it into them. You can't carry no gun. You are not grown. And those police officers are not going to say, oh, that's just a 17-year-old kid. If they see a gun on your person, they're going to shoot first and ask questions later. And we could sit here and say that it's not right. But it being right or wrong is not the issue here. It's not the goal here. The goal is to survive. The goal is to make it home at night. Or before night, preferably. But if you happen to have to be out at night, you work, you go to school at night. Hey, the goal is to survive your encounter. I'm not telling you anything I haven't had to do myself. When I had my encounter with the police, and I wasn't doing anything wrong, but because I was a black person, I didn't even fit the description. They were looking for a black young man. A black young man. Do I look like a black young man? And I didn't have locks during this time, where this was like 3 or 4 years ago. Okay. I had a brown wave. So I definitely did not look like a guy. And I definitely didn't have, they were looking for a black young man with dreadlocks. But because I was the only black person in the vicinity, hey, guess what? The police had me on the ground, handcuffed me, all unmarked vehicles all around me. Looked like something out of movies, really. And I'm on the ground under the tunnel, handcuffed. They're asking me what happened. What happened? Do you know about this? Do you know about that? And I'm like, no, I'm walking to work. I have my uniform on. And had I had a weapon on me that day, and I could have, it's an open carry state, and I was walking to work. Had I had a weapon, I would not be here. I may not have survived my attempt. I probably would have gotten shot. Real talk. And we could sit here and talk about, that's not right, and that's not fair. We have to change the system. We have to change the system. No justice, no peace. That sounds good, and it makes certain people that are not black feel like they're doing their part to change the system because they really feel like they're doing this is doing something. I even want to say, even though I think it's coming from a good place, I think it's coming from a place where they're moral and they're ethical and they want to try to help and they hate that this is happening and they want it to change. So that's a good thing. But the very fact that they believe that what they're doing and what they're funding and what they're supporting is going to change things speaks not only to their naivete, but it also speaks to their privilege. Because they're like, well, certainly they'll hear me, and certainly they'll do this because I'm so-and-so and so-and-so. And they don't even understand that this goes so much higher than them. And that even though they'll go and march and protest, and get arrested to catch a case, and they do their part to try to make things right for the black person in America, they don't understand that it's not going to help. And it's not because of who they are or their privilege. It's because the system has been set in place for so many years. And it's a system that's very lucrative and profitable for a lot of people. And when you start messing with people's money in this country, they're not going to mess with the money. They're not going to mess with the way to profit off of the pain and the oppression of others. This is how America was made great. By pain, by oppression of others, by the murder, the wholesale kidnapping and murder and torture and rape and incarceration and oppression of others, so that they can worship the way they want, so that they can live the way they want, so they can live their best life on your pain. But anyway, this is not about them. I'm trying to make my people understand that if they're arresting white pregnant women in Washington for protesting George Floyd's murder, what do you think they're going to do to you? What do you think they're going to do to your children and your grandchildren? Do you understand? This is what you have to drill into these kids. BLM murals and yelling and chanting no justice, no peace is not going to change the system. Sitting at the table of government officials and practicing your right to vote, they're not changing the system. Because there are people that this is how they've been able to send their babies to school internationally. This is how they've been able to live their best lives and make sure that their children are okay. So you got to instill in your children some wisdom. You have to be a parent. You have to be a grandparent. This is not about, please understand, this is not about condemning parents that made mistakes, because we've all made mistakes now. This transcends, I raised my kids right, and I did this and I did that. My dad, okay, single father, I have 4 brothers and no sisters. Raised all of us. My mom had some hand in it, but my mom and dad separated and eventually divorced when I was like 11. And I'm the oldest. And my dad had the boys, and I was back and forth between my mom and my dad. And I tell you what, in New Orleans, come on, New Orleans was at one time the murder capital of this country. Okay, there was a lot of crime and a lot of drugs and a lot of police corruption going on in New Orleans when my dad was raising his sons as a single father in New Orleans. And guess what? My dad has never been to the courthouse. My dad has never had to go bail nobody out of jail. He's never been to the jailhouse. My dad has never had to bury any of us. And my dad did not sell out. He did not join the boule. And my brothers are all married to one wife, one baby mama, good, great husbands and fathers. So it is possible within a systemically racist system to still raise kids that do right. It's possible. And it's not because we are anything special. This is not about raising perfect parents or perfect kids. This is not perfect parents or perfect. It's not about that. Because even though my dad raised us right, and he never had to deal with a lot of stuff parents do today, the police sure did come for me. I can't speak for my brothers. I don't know if my brothers ever had encounters with the police. They never shared it with me. They have. But I did. And what did I do wrong? I was on my way to work. So it doesn't matter if you raise your kids right. You're a black person in America. Do you understand that? So you have to prepare the kids, whether you are a leader of black young kids, whether you are a parent, grandparent, aunt, uncle, you have some kind of say or some kind of influence in a black person's life. You need to prepare them. You need to teach them. You need to educate them. And you need to live a certain way in front of them so they'll have an example to follow. If they hear you always talking trash about the police, and then they see you not submitting to the police, they won't submit to the police. If you know that your child is committing crime and they living in your house and you hiding for them, you hiding them, you're not reporting the crime. You know that your child is carrying a weapon and they're underage. Come on, you need to report that. But the system is, I know what the system is, but whenever you let a criminal continue to commit crime, they're going to continue to commit crime. They're going to see how much crime they can get away with. And guess what? Criminals commit crime most against people they are in close proximity with. So that is the reason for black on black crime. Yeah, there are outside circumstances and situations that facilitate and enable black on black crime. Mm-hmm. There are systems in place that actually also favor black on black crime. Drugs are being placed and guns are being brought into the community by outside influences. Yes. But there's also an internal element. There's also some internal factors within the black community. The black community has lost, the desire to want to parent their children. And if that's the case, then you should not have kids. Because we could talk about pro-life all we want. Oh, I don't believe in abortion. And I'm not advocating abortion. But what's worse? Aborting a child that you know you're not going to raise and that's going to end up on the streets, causing and wreaking havoc in the neighborhood, selling dope to the other kids, shooting kids, and eventually watching that child having to perish by the hands of the police or by somebody else's child that's living the same way. Or if you know that they're not that this child is doomed for failure in the womb. You know this based upon who you decided to open your legs for and have a baby with. If you know that Pookie Daddy was a drug dealer, that generational curse is on Pookie. Pookie's dad. And it will go down into the spiritual DNA of the child. And they don't ever have to even be around Pookie Dad. It's in the bloodline. It's in the spirit. So if you know that, he's a drug dealer, you know that he's a pimp, you know that he's an alcoholic, you know that he struggles with his sexuality, you know that he's a criminal, and you sit there, you know he's homeless, and you sit there and you lay up with him and get pregnant for him, then what does that say? It doesn't matter how strong and powerful of a mother you are. The very fact that you made that choice to bring a child into the world and procreate with somebody who's spiritually off means that you're going to have to deal with them demons. And Pookie Daddy probably long gone in jail, dead, or whatever. Living his best life. I'm going to tell you this one last thing. Parents, we have to realize that once you decide to become a mother, it's not about what you want. You don't get to live your best life as a single parent. When you have your first responsibility after living for Yah is to make sure that your children are okay. You need to be living some kind of way, in a way that teaches your children, that they see it before them. I'm not talking about perfection, because nobody's perfect. But I'm talking about teaching your children right from wrong. and teaching them also that when they commit crime, they have to pay the time, no matter what race they are. Because that's enabling criminal behavior, which is one of the most dangerous and heinous things that can be done in today's world. I don't agree with, there are white parents and there are Asian parents and there are Hispanic parents that enable their children to do criminal things and hide their children and hire the best lawyers and what's this, all of that is dangerous and toxic and wicked because it's teaching the child, I could get away with a crime. I could get away with committing murder. There was a whole show called How to Get Away with Murder. What are we teaching these children? How to get away with murder? Go ahead and spray the school and then talk about how mentally whatever you were and talk about how you was not raised right. Most people weren't raised fully right. But people didn't go off and decide to kill people ad nauseum. Teach these kids right from wrong. If they commit crime, report them and pray for them that they'll learn the lesson. You can't let your kids roam the streets free. You're not helping that child by letting them do that. They need to learn that they cannot commit crime. Every other race can commit crime, and they probably will get away with it. But black kids can't get away with nada. You're going to get punished more. You got to teach your kids that too. And they're not going to like it, and it seems unfair. But it is what it is. And if you don't teach your kids that, they're going to be targets. They still may be targets, but they'll be uneducated, unwise targets. And targets that don't know that they're targets, they don't move wisely. They don't move circumspectly. They just do some random stupid stuff that end up getting them killed because they weren't aware of what they needed to do. But you got to teach your kids. You got to teach them. You got to teach them. You got to teach them and you got to pray for them. Now, you can take it or leave it. I'm not telling you nothing. I ain't had to live myself. I know. I'm trying to help you. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to condemn you. I'm trying to help you. Help your kids and your grandkids survive. Aren't you tired of hashtags? I am. But we are in a war. And we are being attacked and we're outnumbered. And they got all the ammo. They got all the guns. Okay, so we can't fight the war with their weapons because they got all the weapons. They got all the ammo. So we got to fight this in the spirit. And part of fighting things in the spirit means being wise. Not being ignorant of the enemy's devices. One of the devices of the enemy, one of the ways that people are made prey by the enemy is ignorance. If you don't know, what you don't know can't hurt you. Teach your kids early. This ain't about going and get a ballerina, and this ain't about this and that and the other and all that wonderful stuff that they do for their kids so they can feel like they're giving their children a chance and their children are successful. You got to do a different training program for your kids. That's if you want them to survive. Because ain't no child immune from racism in this country. I don't care how they're raised. I don't care where they come from. I don't care if it's a single parent home, 2-parent home. I don't care how much money you make. No black kid is not a target in this country. So it's time to school your kids. If you're going to bring them here now. If you can't do it, then don't bring them here. Don't get pregnant. Don't sleep with the fool. Because these churches, they're not doing nothing but having more church and burying your kids. But they're not doing anything. So then you got to teach your children. Now I'm gone. I hope you guys be safe and be blessed. And shalom.